I'd like to call to order the West Covina Planning Commission meeting for Tuesday, June 11th, 2013 at 7 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Valles, and remain standing, please, for a moment of silence for the shooting victims in Santa Monica and your own intentions. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Do we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Valles? Commissioner Menifee? Present. Commissioner Holtz?
Here.
Commissioner Castellanos?
Here.
Commissioner Blackburn? Present.
Do we have any additions or corrections to the minutes of the regular meeting, May 14th? Anyone?
I don't think there are.
None? Okay. So approved. This brings us to oral communication. This is a time when any member of the public may speak to the Commission on any matter within the scope of duties assigned to the Commission. Other matters included on this agenda may be addressed when the item is under consideration. For all oral communications, the chairperson may impose reasonable limitations on public comments to assure an orderly and timely meeting. The Ralph M. Brown Act limits the Planning Commission and staff's ability to respond to public comments at this meeting. Thus, your comments may be agendized for future meetings or referred to staff. The Commission may ask questions for clarification if desired at this time. By policy of the Commission, oral communications at this time on the agenda is limited to a total of 15 minutes. Persons who are not afforded the opportunity to speak at this time may do so under item E later on the agenda. Okay, let me see. Does anyone wish to speak at this time?
I think those two cards are for
Well,
oral
it doesn't
communication.
say exactly what the subject is, so I'm not sure if it's for later or for now.
No, it's for oral communication.
Okay. Carol Arndt?
We have had ongoing litigation against the city for some time about the building, the development by a private developer within the confines of the Civic Center. I'm not here to talk about that. That's ongoing. What I want to mention to you is two things. I was here for the last meeting, and there was no conversation. There were no questions. There were no statements. There were no opinions, and that bothered me because I don't want you just to rubber stamp whatever is brought up. I want to hear what your thinking is. You're here for a reason. You are here to protect the taxpayers and to explain stuff to us because you know more about what's going on than we do. So we want to hear about it. And so that's what I would expect from you. The second thing is, and I asked for it at the City Council meeting, if we are going to do a general plan, we absolutely must, as we have in the past, include the citizens. We need to have 2 people selected from the north part of the city, 2 people from the south, 2 people from the east, and 2 people from the west. And then to make it an odd number, we need to have 1 person chosen at large. And I've expressed that to City Council. I'm going to keep talking about it. I can remember when Irene Fleck was a part of that. Joan Wilmer was a part of that. Bela Drooks was a part of that. Those are the only 3 names that I can remember. But that's an important process, and we must follow through on that. Thank you.
Shirley Buchanan?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Shirley Buchanan. I've lived in West Covina since 1956, so I've been around for a few years and seen a few things happen from other Planning Commission meetings. What I'm questioning right now is I don't think I was able to attend the last Planning Commission meeting, but in the last, say, several meetings, everything's been on the consent calendar. Why? It doesn't give the citizens an opportunity to speak unless you remove something from the consent calendar. What I'd like to know, and maybe Mr. Anderson can maybe either call me or send me an email, what is the criteria for things to be placed on the consent calendar? And the third thing is, you know, West Covina was, there's been very little business on the Planning Commission agenda lately, and yet West Covina was voted, wasn't it, the most friendly business community in California or the nation? Why aren't more businesses either coming to West Covina, or why are they not appearing before this body? Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Anyone else care to speak? Jeff, did you want to respond to that question? We have another person. Come on up.
Sir, please step up to the podium. You can speak.
General plan conformance for the probation officer, office at 350 North Azusa. And I am Ed Edmonds. I worked in that area and that facility for the last 15 years or so. I've seen what's going on with that building in that area. And I would think that putting a probation office in there would be definitely beneficial to that area because of what is happening there with the transits and the crime, which I've reported many times. I don't live in the city, but I do work here. And I think it'd be beneficial to put that probation office in. I represent the owner and the property manager for the area. Sure.
Valerie Ramirez and Kerry Calkins.
Chairman, I think those are...
Oh, those are for,
That's
okay,
right
that's
here,
for
yeah.
one of the agenda items.
Yeah.
We'll hold that for later. Okay, that takes us to the consent calendar. This is the time for the public to comment on
Chairman,
any
would you-
item on the consent calendar.
Would you like me to respond to some of
If
those?
you want to, yes,
Yes.
please.
Well, the one I can respond to that Ms. Arndt was speaking about, the general plan update, there is some discussion about considering a process for doing a general plan update, but the city has not determined to do that at this point in time, nor have we got the funds together to do that. So we're not in the process of doing that right now. At such time as we decide what the process would be, that would be the appropriate time to look at forming a citizens committee or a review committee or ad hoc committee, whatever name would come under that. But right now, we're not doing a general plan update. Just want to make that clear. We're not in the process of doing one. I can follow up with Ms. Buchanan on the consent calendar, what the criteria is for that.
So in order to clarify a little bit, that was just a study session regarding the,
The housing element?
Yes.
The housing element is one chapter that's required to be updated periodically, and it's required to be updated this year. By the end of this year, we're required to have adopted that. So that is sort of we have to move quickly, as every other city in Southern California has to move quickly to do that. That is not the same thing as a general plan that has a lot more questions. So if that's what the discussion is about. I'm
I
glad
think
you
so.
brought that up,
Yeah.
Commissioner
Thank you for
Russell.
clarifying that. I know there was confusion there. And then in response to why aren't more businesses opening, I think I've seen a lot of businesses open in West Covina recently, so I don't really follow that. But I mean, maybe you could provide a list.
I'd like to see a list myself.
Okay.
Let me respond to that by saying most businesses that open in West Covina do not have to come before the Planning Commission. retail uses in general do not have to come before the Planning Commission. Most restaurant uses don't have to come before the Planning Commission. Office uses and medical office uses don't have to come before the Planning Commission. The type of items that have to come before the Planning Commission is actually a very limited number of things. So just because there's not things being brought to the Planning Commission doesn't mean there's not businesses that are opening up. So that, hopefully maybe that clarifies that a little. And there are a number of businesses that are in the process of opening, and there's a couple businesses that are under construction, including the LA Fitness over by Restaurant Row that you might have noticed. So
Thank you, Jeff.
that helps.
Yes. And also, too, I'd like to respond on regards to the why there wasn't any discussion on our last meeting. If we don't have a discussion, that doesn't mean that we're a rubber stamp. It's just that we have read the material, we have studied it, and perhaps the 5 of us or the 4 of us or whatever it is, we agree with it. And maybe that's why we didn't have that discussion. So that's just to clear it up. I know for a fact, I myself, I'm not a rubber stamp. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Brings us to the consent calendar. This is a time for the public to comment on any item on a consent calendar. The consent calendar items are considered routine in nature and are normally enacted in one motion. The chairperson may remove a question consent calendar item for separate action.
We have 2 items on the consent calendar. We have the forthcoming, which lists upcoming projects. We do have some projects, some pretty large projects that are on the next agenda on the 25th. And also it has one item, which is an extension of time for a precise plan and a tract map for the 5-story mixed-use project at 301 South Glendora. There was a typo on the staff report there that was originally approved on September 27, 2011. It originally had a 2-year validity timeline, and that would have expired in September 27, 2013. They're asking for a 1-year extension to allow it to continue to be valid until September 27, 2014. That concludes the presentation of the...
That's the Charles Company?
That is the
One-year
Charles
extension?
Company, yes, sir.
Okay. Make a motion to receive and file.
Motion.
Commissioner Vaz, you second. First by Ellis, second by Commissioner Castellanos. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carried 5-0. Brings us to public hearings. Administrative use permit number 13-09, category...
Chairperson Holtz?
I'm sorry.
If we can go back to the consent item, you made a motion to receive and file.
Yes.
So that's item 2 on the consent calendar. However, the extension would still need an actual motion to extend.
For the
approve the
extension? Okay.
I think you can just make a motion to adopt the consent calendar, and the recommendations will follow each one.
So just make a recommendation to adopt the consent calendar?
Correct.
Okay. Didn't we just do that or not?
No, it was worded differently. You
Okay.
received and filed.
Okay. So make a motion to...
Yeah, Betty can rephrase
Yeah,
it.
I will rephrase it. I make a motion that we concede, that we
Adopt.
adopt and we for another, and give them an extension for another year.
Basically, all you have to do is adopt the consent calendar.
Okay,
So make a
adopt.
motion to adopt the consent calendar.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Valles, and we have a second? Second. Second by Commissioner Castellanos. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay, public hearings. Administrative use permit number 13-09, categorical exemption. Applicant is Valerie Ramirez. This is a request for administrative use permit to operate a creative art studio, The Lab, within a 10,000 square foot tenant space. The studio offers classes in tumbling, kickboxing, and various types of dance to children and adults. The studio may offer additional classes, art, music, photography, etc., and barbershop in the future. The proposed use and located within the service commercial SC zone. May we have the staff report, please?
Assistant Planner Amy Davis will be presenting that report.
Good evening, Chairman Holtz. Good evening, Commissioners. As Chairman Holtz just mentioned, the applicant is requesting an administrative use permit to operate a studio called The Lab that offers classes in tumbling, kickboxing, and various types of dance to children and adults. The studio may also offer additional classes in art, music, and photography, as well as an ancillary barber shop in the future. A barber shop is a use that is permitted by right, but since the additional classes also require an administrative use permit, they have been included in the resolution as well, should the commission choose to adopt the approval resolution for the proposal. The subject tenant space is 10,000 square feet and is located in the northwest portion of the Pioneer Shopping Center on the northwest corner of Azusa Avenue and Roland Street. The applicant opened the lab in its current location at 541 North Azusa without obtaining the necessary approvals and permits required by the city. The applicant met with city staff on May 15th and is in the process of complying with all city requirements. A complete history and timeline for the studio is attached to the staff report. That's attachment 4. A comprehensive class schedule, including duration, type of class, age range, and number of students, is also attached to the staff report. That's attachment 2. The applicant has indicated that the studio will operate Sunday through Friday and will be closed on Saturdays. Proposed hours of operation are 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 5 p.m. to 12 a.m. on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. on Fridays, and 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sundays. The number of child and adult students enrolled varies depending on the class, but the applicant has indicated a potential maximum of 20 child students on site during the class on Sundays from 5 to 8, and a potential maximum of 38 adult students on site during the 3 classes on Wednesdays that overlap from 8 p.m. to midnight. In addition to the students, there will typically be 2 to 3 employees on site at any one time. The shopping center was developed with 264 on-site parking spaces. The subject tenant space is 10,000 square feet and was developed to accommodate a retail use. Since the on-site parking requirement for retail uses is 1 space for every 250 square feet of gross floor area, the subject tenant space is allotted 40 parking spaces. The number of required spaces for the studio will vary depending on the age and number of students on site at any one time, but will increase in relation to the number of adult students and instructors on site at any one time. The on-site parking requirement, is calculated at 1 space per 2 employees and 1 space per 2 adult students. Based on the class schedule that the applicant provided, a potential maximum of 38 adult students and 3 instructors will be on site at any one time, and that would require 20.5 or 21 parking spaces. Staff included a condition that limits the number of adult students and instructors on site at any one time to 80, based on the parking requirements for the studio and the number of spaces allotted for the tenant space. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution approving administrative use permit number 13-09. This concludes the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. The applicant is also here this evening. Thank you.
Are there any questions of staff? But first to staff. Questions of staff, anyone?
I'll wait till they speak and then I have some questions.
Just one for the staff. So are the owners of the building aware of everything that's gone on and the conditions that will be placed?
That's, as far as we're aware, that may be a better question for the applicant to respond to.
I've got a couple questions. Number one, I just want to make sure, is it the whole building they're taking over at that location? Because I noticed there's some signs up that Goodwill is coming in there, and those old signs, or is it the total building that they're taking over?
The tenant space at 541 North Azusa, it's 10,000 square feet. That's the location that they're proposing to operate out of. Prior to the current location, they were located in a different tenant space at that shopping center. Right. The applicant could probably elaborate on that.
Okay.
And there are other tenants in that shopping center. They're not taking the whole shopping
No,
center.
I know there's other tenants in there, but the one main building, there was like a shoe factory in the front and Goodwill Industries or something, and I just want to make sure they're taking over that whole building there, 541. The other ones are separate shops along to Azusa. Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask staff, have they met now the issue with the sprinklers that the fire department found that they were in violation of?
As I understand it, they have met their obligation with the sprinklers, but they still have ongoing building code, building permit issues, which they can't address until the planning commission were to approve this project.
Okay.
So this is a step-by-step process. This is basically the first step. The other steps would follow. But they have been working concurrently with building and fire.
Okay. And then the last one, and I think it's a typo, it's on attachment 2, and it's the hours of operation. And Thursday, down towards the bottom, it says they're going to be open from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., and I think that should be 10 p.m. on Thursday. Excuse me.
Are you referring to the open session that's labeled 8 to 11?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that should be 8 to 10.
Okay.
Says
So
on
that's
Tuesdays.
a typo.
Well, you may want to ask the applicant, because on Tuesdays it has the same time, so they have 8 to 11, both Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah. Okay. I see that on Tuesday also.
So you may
Okay.
want to ask the applicant if that was a typo or if that's their intent.
Okay. Any other questions, staff?
Well, I'll wait until they speak. I do have some questions to ask them.
Of staff or of the
No,
applicant?
of-
Okay, well, that's what I say. First is staff, and then we'll go to the applicant. Okay. We'll go to public testimony at this time, and I'll call up Valerie Ramirez and Carrie Calkins.
I'm Valerie Ramirez.
Hi.
And I'm Carrie Calkins.
Hi.
Hi. I'm not sure if we give an overview, but they did a pretty good job of what we're doing. We can just answer your question. We did get approval this morning, actually, from the fire sprinklers, so we're totally set with that.
Okay.
And are you taking over that whole building where Shoe Factory was and Goodwill and all?
Actually, no, that's separate from us. Where the shoe factory was, and then the spot right next to it is where Goodwill will be, and we're actually behind that. There's a warehouse that it used to be a Smart and Final, I believe, back a couple of years back, and that's the spot we're taking over.
Okay, so those two pieces will be cut out of the building. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the hours here on Tuesdays and Thursday where it says 8 to 11? And I think in the document it says 8 to 10.
It should be 8 to 11.
To 11 on
To 11,
Tuesdays?
yeah, yes.
Okay. Any questions of staff? Commissioner Velez?
I do. Excuse me. In regards to your, I'm concerned about the kickboxing. Now, on the kickboxing, do they have to have a license? The instructors, I'm speaking of the instructors now, because you don't mention anything about instructors having any, if they have permits or they have to be licensed. Now, all your instructors that are going to be teaching there, do they have to be licensed?
There's different licensing, I would assume, for kickboxing versus dancing. So all of our dance instructors are qualified through like their industry credentials and everything they've done. So they have to provide a resume and a safety check and that sort of thing to be able to work with the kids. As far as kickboxing, we only have one kickboxing instructor who has trained in mixed martial arts his entire life. I'm not sure of a certain kickboxing credential or license that he would need, but he's taught for many years and been wonderful for us.
Another concern that I have is also insurance. You don't mention anything about the insurance, because I don't want to see that if there is an accident, one of the children,
Sure.
if you're going to have the youth, that if they get hurt, hopefully that they don't come back to the city.
Absolutely. We do have insurance. That's
Okay.
top priority for us.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was there yesterday.
Oh,
I
good.
went to
Okay.
check it. Yes, I went to check where you're going to be at.
Okay.
And I noticed one thing too, and I should have asked this of the staff, is that the parking is terrible.
The little alley there.
Yes, it is horrible. Will you be having lights at night?
There are lights all around that line the building that come on, I think, at like 6 or 7 p.m., and they provide ample lighting for the entire parking lot there.
The owner, too, at one point was mentioning that if need be, he would be willing to replace and install more lighting for safety and so
Okay,
forth.
that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. We mentioned safety. In regards to safety, do you have people on staff who know first aid, CPR, and just general safety protocols?
Yes. we have an
Earthquakes,
area
fires?
that has all our safety kit.
Okay,
ready.
good. And so I spoke to Jason Briley today. He told me about the sprinklers. So in terms of anything else with the fire department, I noticed in your report you submitted the timeline. Everything's moving forward, so
Yeah, we're
thank you
doing-
for that.
Yeah, we're fully on board with them. Like we said, we had approval from fire today, and actually building has approved the plans, but we can't move forward with that until we have any approval. So we're trying to, after this process, and I think once we finish with Long, then we'll be fully good to go.
Good, and in regards to all the conditions that will need to be met, and one of them being ensuring the owner is aware, is the owner involved in the whole process?
Very supportive.
Okay, good. Let's see. And as far as signage, were you planning on getting signage? I mean, I noticed on the door there was something. Is anything bigger
There
gonna come up?
is signage above the two front doors. There's a banner hanging in the back, but other than that,
That's
there's just,
it.
yeah, there's one.
Isn't there a sign above the back door, pretty big, the lab?
That one is pretty big. They won't, I guess the restrictions with Goodwill, the way their contract is for what they get provided for their signage up top, we don't get any signage up top. So that part we kind of lost out on, but as far as like just on the building or like banners and stuff, that's all we've been allowed to.
No,
by
I'm talking
by
about in the back in the parking lot. I thought I saw a pretty big sign that said the lab.
There's.
Yeah, in the back.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess it is the back, I guess that's our front. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's in the back.
Okay, just one more question. I saw a trailer full of rocks and dirt. Do you know who that belongs to?
You think it's Goodwill.
Goodwill?
Yeah, they're doing a bunch of construction.
It's usually parked right in front of their door, and it hasn't always been there, but recently it's been there. I've noticed it too. It's
Okay.
not ours though.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Blackburn?
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I heard today, too, that the fire department did approve the sprinkler system. I do have a question. On the building department, you had submitted the plan, they're still looking at that. Do you anticipate how long for the work to be done to satisfy the building department?
24 hours. I mean, we're
really?
really anxious
Yeah.
to go.
Okay.
So as soon as they give us approval, we have all the people that are waiting and ready, and they've kind of been looking at the plans, so they've been knowing what we're hoping is going to be finally approved. And I think we already went through one round of approval with buildings, so we're pretty secure on what happens next. So I think it'll be very quick, within days.
Just a silly question. Your hours being open Monday through Friday, not on Saturday. I'd think that would be a busy day.
It surprisingly is not as busy. I don't know why, but most of the time parents have a difficult time getting their kids there. I guess that might be their running around day. And so it's maybe more of a nuisance to get their kids to class on Saturday. We occasionally will like throw like workshops where because we work really closely with a lot of the school districts for like the dance programs at the school or the cheer programs and stuff, and sometimes they'll do like camps where they they'll train for a week or they'll have a workshop or something, and so that would typically would fall on a weekend or Saturday. But as far as like a regular class schedule, we've tried and we just haven't been able to fill it to where it's full and flourishing. So we've just kind of agreed that it's really busy during the week, and on the weekends it's for specialty like workshops or master classes or camps, and that seemed to work out the best for us in scheduling.
Thank you.
Yes, please. We welcome you as part of our business-friendly community.
Thank
We're
you.
glad you chose to stay in West Covina. I understand you did some things, if I understood staff correctly, before you sought your user's permit. I'm always curious as to why people do that, and I presume you didn't know about it, but
Yeah. We've learned this process as we.
it's an education process on our part too, so we need to work at that too. We're happy you're here.
Well, thank you. We apologize for taking the backwards route to getting this done, and we appreciate everybody's
Jeff and Amy have
willingness
been really helpful in
to help
guiding
getting
us
us that.
through.
We're really, really adamant on being in West Covina. I live in West Covina, she lives in West Covina, and we feel that the community here itself would really, really benefit and has benefited from the use that we're providing, and we feel really strongly that it can make an impact and a difference, and we've been able to reach a lot of kids and just adults, people in general, so we're really, really anxious to, like she said, be open again and to stay in West Covina and make it.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Holtz?
Yes.
There was a question about the hours, the hour discrepancy. Did you want to get?
I did. They said it was 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Am I correct?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Does anyone else want to speak on, in favor of the project? Shirley Buchanan.
It sounds like a new adventure for West Covina. But the question I had, they mentioned that there might be a barber shop or a barber. Isn't there health conditions that they have to get through the health department for barbers? And don't they have to have a state license? Just a question.
Well, I know they have to be licensed by the state, but maybe Commissioner Anderson, Chairman Anderson?
Well, let me start by saying that barber shops are an allowed use in the zoning code, so they don't come before you, that we don't spend much time dealing with them, so I don't have the answers on that. But if they did, and what we did encourage Valerie and Carrie, because they have a large space, we encourage them to let us know what they're thinking about doing in the future, so that if you guys saw something going on there, you wouldn't think, hey, we didn't approve this. So that's why that's kind of put in there. If they never go through the barber shop, it won't be an issue, but if they do go through the barber shop, they'll need to get a business license, and the business license will ask for those questions about licensing and health department. So that's the best answer I can give you right now, because we don't really deal with that issue.
That answer your question? Thank you. Anyone else in favor of the project? Anybody against the project? Okay, I'll close public testimony at this time, and I'll open it up to commission discussion. Who would like to start?
I'll go.
Commissioner Castellanos.
Based on, everything we discussed, like I said, I appreciate the process has gone on to fix all the mistakes, and, just if you ever move again, you'll know how to proceed. Hopefully it'll be to a bigger building in the city of West Covina as your business continues to grow. And, please make sure you follow all the city regulations and fire, and good luck to you.
I'd just like to say welcome to West Covina, and we certainly appreciate not only the new businesses, but I think it'd be a great business for not only you folks, but I understand you do a lot with the schools and so forth. So I think that's exciting, and welcome.
Commissioner Valles? No? Commissioner Menifee? Nothing?
I'd move approval of this project. Do we need a number?
No, not yet.
Well, if he's making a motion, we need a number.
Not yet. I'm not finished yet.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay, all right. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's a great use of the area, the property, because it was getting kind of run down over there. My only concern was some of the late hours, but after I visited over there for noise reasons, there's nothing around there. I mean, it's just, there's nothing around there. So that concern was alleviated when I went over there. So I wish you the best. I think it's a great use of the property, and I wish you well. Okay. Can we have resolution numbers, please?
Yes, the resolution number will be 13-5514.
We have a motion?
Move approval of resolution 13-5514. Is that
Second.
correct?
13-5514. Motion by Commissioner Menifee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Blackburn. All in favor?
Well, can I interrupt 1 second?
Yes.
There's two things I think that I'd like you to consider in terms of the resolution. The one is we need to change the hours on the resolution. If we could have that part of the motion, if Joe could amend that part of the motion. And then
Probably, what do you mean you need to change the hours?
let me point it out to you specifically. On the resolution that's before you, it's attachment 1 of the staff report on page 4. Item H, it's about halfway down the page, lists the hours, and the hours are, say, 5 to 10 p.m. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. And you just agreed to allow them to go to 11. So that needs to be amended, so you can just make that part of the motion. The second thing is, and it may be worthy of a short discussion here, is that right now, that doesn't allow Saturday hours. If you would be so inclined to allow Saturday hours, we should probably put that in there, either from 10 to 8 or from some other time period that you might think is appropriate. But right now, they didn't request Saturday hours, so staff didn't put Saturday hours in there. It wasn't we were trying to restrict them, they didn't request them.
Well, but if we set the hours and that doesn't meet with their needs, then what are we doing?
Well, that's my question. Do you want to, we weren't aware that they might have some idea to do Saturday hours till we just heard the presentation tonight. So what I'm suggesting is if you want to allow them to have some Saturday hours, either flexibility in the future or to allow them to do these camps and stuff, we should probably put that in the conditions of approval. In other words, amend the condition of approval to say Saturday hours from some time to some time are allowed.
Do we have to say a definite time?
It would be best if you had a definite time, yeah. My thought would be 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., that's what they have for Sundays.
For Sunday, right.
And they're not intending to do it on a normal basis, but it gives them the flexibility.
I'll amend my motion to include those two items, including Sunday having the same, or Saturday having the same hours as Sunday.
Okay.
And amending the time on attachment 4. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Blackburn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried 5-0. Good luck. Takes us down to non-hearing items. General plan conformance, probation office, 350 North Azusa Avenue. We have staff?
Yes. I'm going to have a PowerPoint come up in just a second of the aerial of the area. The city received correspondence that that Los Angeles County is intending to begin operations of a parole compliance service center at 350 North Azusa. The California government section or code requires that the county submit a letter to the proposed jurisdiction and that the Planning Commission can determine if the proposed use conforms to the city's adopted general plan. So this item that's before you tonight has been scheduled for review by the Planning Commission to allow the Commission to determine if the proposed parole compliance service center is in conformance with the city's general plan. We do have the letter that was provided by the county, which is attachment 2 in your staff report. And the resolution that I've been discussing is attachment 1.
Okay.
If we could have the lights turned down too, that would be helpful. The subject site is located on the northeast corner of Azusa Avenue and Thelborn Street and is currently improved with a commercial office building constructed in 1963. The property has a general plan land use designation of service and neighborhood commercial. The subject property is adjacent to single-family residence and multifamily residence. I'm going to kind of go through some of the uses that surround the site. So this is the subject property, and if you've been by there, there's 2 buildings with sort of an alley in between. This building is sort of elevated, and it has parking underneath. And then this building is a 1-story building. There's an alley here, and there's an access way through here as well. There's single-family houses that are adjacent to this right here. There's apartment complexes that are located here, right across Thelborn Street. We also have 2 senior housing developments that are just off the aerial here. These 2, the West Covina Senior Housing 1 and 2, that are fairly close. About 825 feet walking distance from here down this alley. There are 2 schools in the area. There's, I believe, Trawick Middle School that's here, and Workman Elementary that's there. Both of them about 1,000 or 1,100 feet in walking distance away. There's also 2 liquor stores. There's a liquor store up here, and there's a liquor store about here that are also very close to the subject property. On the site, I believe, in this building here, there is a medical use that is for addiction recovery. So recovering addicts will go there periodically for treatment. In 2011, the Planning Department did receive an application to renovate this property, to rehab the building and the parking lot and do some changes. It was approved, but the property owner never acted upon that approval, and it's since been invalidated. The time has run out on it. The general plan of the city includes 9 elements or chapters, including land use. Elements provide goals and policies to provide direction on development and land use decisions. Staff has reviewed the adopted City of West Covina general plan and has identified several goals in the land use element that may not be consistent with the location of a parolee compliance service center. And I'm going to kind of walk those through us on page 2 of the staff report. The first one, which we have labeled D2, because of the way it's labeled in the general plan, land use element, provide for a range of non-residential uses that will ensure a strong economic base for the city. Next one is D4. Arrange land uses with regard to health, safety, convenience, and welfare of the residents of the city. Then D7. The city's land use pattern and development should reflect the needs and desires of its citizens and reinforce the city as a community of high quality, stability, and good taste. G5. Shopping centers and other neighborhood and service commercial uses should be compatible with adjacent residential areas. In G6, the city should undertake an active role in the prevention of deterioration of commercial areas and the upgrading of those commercial areas where blight has occurred, as stated in the economic development element. The general plan also includes a safety element, and there is one goal in the safety element that may not be consistent with the location of a parolee service center, and is simply to minimize risk. As part of the research that was done, the police department was asked to research crime statistics for the area. A memorandum with reports of calls for service and criminal activity has been provided, which is attachment 3, and goes back several pages. There's a memo and other statistics that follow. The police department tracks crime statistics through reporting districts. Reporting districts are small geographic areas. There are 177 of them in the city, and the subject property is located in reporting district number 30. We have a map that's included. And we have also, the police department has also provided crime statistics for the surrounding reporting districts as well, because these are very small areas. So the next block or across the street would be a different reporting district. We want to make sure you have crime statistics for that area, not just for the reporting district, because it all functions as one cohesive neighborhood. The memorandum provides a map of the vicinity with reporting districts, provides information since 2008 for calls for service, for Part 1 crimes, and for Part 2 crimes. Part 1 crimes are more serious crimes, and I believe those are distinctions by the FBI. I got that right? Yeah, those are distinctions that are by the FBI, so they're national distinctions, they're not just for the city. The crime statistics indicate that since 2008, reporting district number 30 had a total of 164 Part 1 crimes reported. This is approximately 31 a year. And had a total of 63 Part 2 crimes reported, which is approximately 12 a year. The police department has concluded in their memo that the addition of a probation office at the subject site could increase calls for service and crime reports in the surrounding area, which could be damaging to residents, businesses, and schools in the area. Based on staff's review of the proposed use, subject property, and the general plan goals, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission find that the proposed parolee compliance service center is not in compliance with the City of West Covina's adopted general plan. And to do so, we have prepared a finding, which I won't necessarily read for you, but it's on page 3 of the staff report, and is also included in its entirety as in section 2 of the resolution, basically restating some of the points that I've already covered. The decision of the Planning Commission would be forwarded to the county for their consideration. We do have Commander Richard Bell of the West Covina Police Department here to answer questions on this crime statistics or anything else regarding the police service. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the attached resolution to make the finding that the proposed parolee compliance service center is not in compliance with the City of West Covina's adopted general plan. And we also have, from the city attorney's office, we have John Lamb here to answer any questions that you might have on the legal process here. That concludes my presentation.
I'm wondering if Commander Bell would like to make a comment on this.
When doing this research, I found it interesting because when I first got here, there was a parole office on the corner of Badillo and Orange. And as we reviewed those statistics, we found that there was an increase during that time. I spoke with the now intern chief, and he wanted me to definitely make a note of that. And so there is a chance that it could increase just because you're bringing an element into the city. As you know, a lot of the criminals, they usually do things as part of a crime of opportunity. What I mean is it's not always planned that they go out and just decide they're going to burglarize or do something. Sometimes just the mere fact that they're in an area and that they see an opportunity, window half cracked in a car, they see an iPod there, the window gets broken or something like that. That's the types of crimes that we see. In this report, as I was actually putting this report together, we actually had a crime there where, and it's actually in here, where we ended up arresting a couple of people right in that very area. I believe it was the building right adjacent to it. And it was basically the person we contacted there was, had a warrant for a certain amount of drug use, was on probation for burglary, the crimes that we're definitely speaking about. So we're concerned about that. We've already had a staffing reduction in the police department. So whenever these crimes happen, it does take units out of the field, which, that's part of our job. But if we can eliminate having to do that, then we're certainly appreciative of that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Would we be out of order to have commission discussion on this?
I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
That's appropriate.
Anybody like to make any comment? Commissioner Velez?
Yes, as I read the material, and I see the schools surrounding that area. I was there again yesterday to check in the area. I noticed the schools, the children, and also to the senior citizens. True, it would bring us some revenue, but one thing I will say right now is that I am not going to approve something that will jeopardize the safety net for our children or for senior citizens. And I am very much against it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Chairman Holtz. Just wanted to add to staff's presentation tonight. This item comes before the Planning Commission and staff in kind of a curious way. We were provided notice, as you have the copy of that letter in the record, under the government code and the way the courts have interpreted jurisdictional authority with respect to counties versus cities. The law currently is that counties are not required to comply with city zoning codes, and vice versa. We're not required to comply with the county's zoning code. Therefore, under the government code section that's cited in the staff report, all the county has to do is provide notice, and we have the opportunity to approve or make the conformance finding, yes or no, regarding conformity with our general plan. Once we make that finding, we provide notice to the county that a finding was made, and we give them the resolution in the staff report and the record. However, there really is no city control at this point with respect to prohibiting this use from going in by the county. And so it is very difficult for the city to be presented with this kind of case when we don't have at least planning control over the use. And so what we wanted to do is present it to the Planning Commission so we can put it on the record and forward it to the county so they are clear that the Planning Commission has made the finding that it does not conform with our general plan. And it's currently before you tonight. I have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'm available for questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Blackmore?
I have a couple of questions. Number one, how many probation officers have we been told that might work out of that building? Is that,
We don't have an answer for that.
No idea.
This is, the information that you see in that letter is all that we've been provided at this point. It's an 8,000 square foot tenant space, but how it exactly operates is not, it has not been provided to us.
maybe the officer would know, on a typical probation officer, how many offenders would one probation officer expect to be with, interview on a daily basis?
You know, it would be difficult to say it would be a little difficult to say because it really depends on the square footage of the building. I've been to several different probation offices, and they're all different sizes. What I can tell you is that over the last few years, the probation department has taken on the bulk of inmates from prisoners being released from prison. So there's been an increase at the probation level. So that's probably why they're looking for buildings, so that they can try and at least get these people back on track. Again, you know, 8,000 square feet, I don't know if it's going to be cubicle based or if it's going to be office based, but I would imagine if they're going to have a site here, I mean, the average one, I'd probably say you can have anywhere from 25 to 100 people operating out of there. It could be as small as, I would say probably 25 is the smallest, but I've seen them as large as, you know, 100 agents out of there, and they all have a caseload. I personally have friends that work in the parole division. Their caseloads are being reduced. However, at least the friends that I have, they're carrying at least about 100 cases on their caseload. That's per person. So it just depends on if they have high offender, low offender. It all depends, and I probably couldn't speak and give you an accurate number as far as probation. You'd have to have someone from there, but that's a good average to go by.
Typically, would the probation officer see each offender once a week? Is that, or does it depend?
No, it all depends. Sometimes it's once every 3 months. It could be something similar to that. But as the crime increases, yeah, those high offenders, they're usually seen once a week or at least once a month. But there are some that report, you know, maybe every 3 months, and you know, until they're off. Keep in mind that usually the typical time when you're on probation or parole is a minimum of like 3 years. You can be as low as a year, but most of the time it's about a 3-year time frame. So as these people go in and out of jail, that time just keeps going.
Just one last question. I don't know if you know the answer. Typically, would that probation officer be in the field, or is he basically behind a desk?
It could be both. Some of them, they come into the office, they take their cases to the field, and they go do home visits. Likewise, they have the offender come to them because it's just easier to manage that way. And that all depends on their caseload. Usually, from the way I understand it, with the high offenders, they want to go see where they live so they can make sure they're there, and they want to do like an in-house. But on your lower offenders, they'll just have them come to the office and they report right there. So, again, I don't work in the probation office, so it really depends on the department.
Thank you for the information.
I have a question.
Excuse me, I just want to point out to everybody on the commission, if you look at the letter from the county, it says the probation department will use this as a parole compliance, not probation, parole, which are higher risk offenders. So it's not necessarily, it'd probably be probation too, but there's also going to be a parole office. And I can remember on Orange and Badillo several years back when we had the same issue and we turned them down, and they still went in there anyway because, like I say, they can do that if they want.
If we had 25 agents with 100 load, roughly, each 2,500 people, what area geographically are we talking about that they might come from?
They can come from all over. Generally, they try to keep them as close to the site as possible. So you would get El Monte, maybe as far away as Pasadena, depending on where they have offices. I don't have the exact location, but they'll regionalize their offices, and the offenders are in between those, and they'll just kind of space them out there. But we can go Pomona, Industry, El Monte, you know, all the cities that touch our city for sure. and maybe a few outside of that, but it really just depends.
So it's broader than just West Covina, and we might ask the county to go somewhere else and set their office up in El Monte or Pasadena or somewhere else.
It's possible, sure.
Thank you. That was rhetorical.
Where is the nearest probation department building that is being proposed for Azusa? Where's the nearest one? I know there's one in Pomona.
There is one in Pomona. It's right there off of,
Mission and
it's actually off of campus. If you're on the
Campus.
10 freeway, you exit campus, it's right in that little industry park there. That's where my friend works out of, actually. They also have one right as you go over Catalog Hill, that's in Covina, but I think they're closing that one down. So that might be why they're relocating. There was a probation officer there.
Yeah, they are closing it down.
Yeah.
to the west of West Covina. Is there any probation department that you know of close by in El Monte,
El Monte
Monrovia?
does
going in
have an
that-
office off the 10 freeway. There's a Denny's there. I'm not sure what street that is. There's a major, actually, office there. Outside of that, I don't know. There isn't any in West Covina right now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Thank you. Commissioner Castellanos?
Well, based on everything we've discussed, schools, medical office, and close proximity for addiction issues, one of my questions actually, which Commander Bell answered, was in relation to the office, which used to be on Orange and Badillo, and you answered my question in regards to what kind of outcome that had, which was an increase of crime during that time. I think there's no better benchmark than that to use to forecast what this might bring. Earlier we had a speaker mentioning that it might drive crime down, but I don't really see a correlation of how that might occur. As Commander Bell mentioned, a lot of crimes are crimes of opportunity, and so the safety of the citizens and the area and patrons of the businesses surrounding, that's our main concern. And the nonconformance with the land use element, but most importantly the safety element of the city plan. There's really multiple reasons. Maintaining our strong economic base, safety, land use pattern, minimizing risk. I think we have plenty of reasons that I hope the county will take into consideration, and as we've suggested, consider alternate locations that maybe somehow pose less of a risk to the general public, wherever that may be, based on if something could be found elsewhere. I really hope they consider that option. I really don't see how this could be positive for West Covina. So that's my addition.
Anyone else? I just want to reemphasize that this is not a probation office, it's a parole office. And with the early release programs that are going on in California with, some really hardcore offenders getting out early, it just brings an element of, people that we don't want here. I have gone by that location several times. There's a lot of transients that hang around in the parking structure underneath. I think some of them even sleep there. Looks like they got sleeping bags there. And again, I remember when they wanted to put an office in at Orange and Badillo, and we turned them down, but they overruled us and went in there anyway. And the only reason it moved out is when they put that housing development in. So, I am not for this, but realistically, nobody wants this in their neighborhood. I can't imagine any community that says, gee, it'd be great to have you here. They have to go somewhere, but I don't think we have to give them our blessing. So I'm definitely against approving this and going along with staff's recommendation.
There is a resolution, so if you'd like me to read the resolution number before you get to any motions, I'd be prepared to do that.
Resolution number, please.
13-5515.
Okay. Do we have a motion to, on Resolution 13-5515?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Menifee, second by Commissioner Blackburn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Okay. Brings us down to study extension for, study session for extension of time requirements. Jeff?
Yes. This is a study session for extensions of time for entitlements. Commissioner Menifee had asked for this study session. It's normal that many applications approved by the Planning Commission do not complete their requirements prior to the expiration date of the application. For items that are approved by the Planning Commission, the Commission must approve an extension. To apply for an extension, the code requires that the applicant submit a request in writing that clearly states the reasons why the construction has not yet begun, and there's a fee that goes along with that request as well. Due to the economy, we're not seeing as many extension requests as we might have 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. So it doesn't come up before the Commission all that often, although you saw tonight we did have one, and we do have them occasionally. Many applicants submit them in a timely manner, but sometimes they're not submitted prior to the expiration date. And just for clarification, let me step back and say that entitlements approved by the Planning Commission generally have a 1-year lifespan. So the entitlement you just approved for the creative dance studio, whatever, the lab is the name of it, they have 1 year to act on that. At the end of that year, if they haven't acted on it, it expires. They can request a continuance, the code says, before the end of that year, but technically if they don't apply for it before the end of the year, then it expires and they must start the process over again and resubmit and go through the process and pay the fees and get an approval one more time. The only exception to that is tract maps and parcel maps, subdivisions, that they get 2 years, and that's a state law requirement. It's not in our code necessarily. It's not a decision the city made, but it is state law. So they get 2 years, and anything that is combined with them gets 2 years. So as a result, the one that was on here earlier tonight, that was extension of time. They had a 2-year approval because it included a tract map. So hopefully that you understand how that works. So many times they're not submitted on time or prior to the expiration date. Sometimes that's because there's a different person that's now processing the application than was at the time that it was being the entitlement phase that comes before you and that we work with them. Sometimes there's a change of ownership. Sometimes there's a change of address. So there's sometimes, frankly, sometimes they just forget and they don't submit it on time. So there's a multitude of reasons why that occurs. And to be helpful, in the past, staff has allowed basically a 3-month grace period. So something expires on March 1st, then we've usually let them, if they submitted anytime between March and June, then we've let them come before the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission makes that decision. We're aware, though, that this commission, the 5 commissioners here, hasn't really ever expressed that as something that they're okay with or had very many opportunities to even look at extensions because they come up very, very, very rarely. So we also realize that when we make a decision on how to process something, and the commission is the one who has to make the decision, that it puts you in kind of a maybe in a difficult situation on how to vote if you don't necessarily agree with the concept of how we're processing something. So when the issue came up, we thought this would be a good opportunity to discuss it, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. We certainly don't want to cause the commission any consternation. We want to work with you and follow and make sure that we talk to applicants about things that we have at least understand what you guys would normally approve, what the commission would normally approve, and not get them in hot water or you guys in hot water, if you understand what I'm trying to get out there. So this is an opportunity, I guess, to provide feedback to staff. We provided you some alternatives, which I can go over one at a time if you'd like, but I guess at this point I'd just kind of say that's our presentation. We'd be happy to answer any questions and help formulate any discussion.
I guess my feeling is it really doesn't make too much difference to me. And I know you have limited staff and you keep getting cut back. What's the best scenario for you guys? I mean, the 3 months, 1 month, no time? I mean, what's best for you? What works best for you?
And I think in a case like this, it's not something that is necessarily a staff-driven issue. We can do it either way. I think that the issue started because not trying to be helpful to staff, but trying to be helpful to the applicants
Right.
who've somehow lost track of time and haven't gotten that in on time. That's who it was trying to be helpful to. Staff, you know, we can bring the extensions, we can.
So it's no more work one way or the other for you?
Not necessarily. It could be more work, but on the other hand, you know, that's what we're here to do. And if there's an issue, you know, just in terms of that, the Planning Commission is not obligated to approve an extension. If the Planning Commission tonight would have looked at that other extension and said, you know what, the world has changed a lot, we don't believe that that's a good project anymore, the Planning Commission has the ability to not approve an extension. You're not required to approve an extension. You're also allowed to modify conditions when it comes before you. So you have a lot of options there, and over the history that I've been here, the Planning Commission has not taken advantage of those situations, except for a couple of isolated incidents. But I want to be clear that it's, you know, the Planning Commission has that authority. So how we process something, you know, I think that what we have in mind is what's best for the city, not necessarily what's easiest for us.
Okay.
And I think that's what you guys have in mind as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might take us a little more work on our end and on your end, but if it's best for the city, we're all willing to do that.
Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman?
I guess, if I have a moment, I guess where I'm coming from is, you know, if somebody, I can't hardly believe that somebody would forget, you know, that much if they got a project on the table that it would, you know, we'd have to extend it 3 months. I could see maybe a month, but, I mean, how do you, if you got a project that you're working on, how does it get away from you? I mean, I don't understand. And I could see if somebody else took it over or something, but other than that, if I've got a project, I pretty much know when it's going to start and when it's going to term out. So that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
Commissioner
I'd
Menifee?
like to speak to this because I brought the issue up, and I appreciate the staff spending their time looking at what the history has been. One of the difficulties I know you have is when you get new commissioners who scratch their heads and look at things and say, well, why are we doing this? You just stated, Mr. Chairman, as I feel, all my life has been based on doing things in a timely manner. And when I start seeing things come in that are not on a timely manner, I wonder why that is. And so we've had some discussions that culminated in this discussion tonight. It just seems to me that if you're reckless enough with your money to not want to pursue a timely extension to something that you're doing, that's making a rather an imposition on others. For staff to say, well, in the past we've let them go 3 months, my callous reaction to that is 3 months and a day, 3 months and a week, you know, 3.5 months. So where do you cut it off? What do you do? And the proper response, I know, must be to us to say, well, you're the commissioners, you deal with it. Now, I suppose there are some issues that we'd have to address, but in thinking about this, as I was reading the material and thinking, I thought, you know, this guy that came in tonight with an application for an extension that's due in September, and this is June, obviously understands the need to get something in case he gets tripped up along the way and needs to rectify something to hopefully be successful in getting his approval. I applaud that. I just think that's marvelous. And so I say, is there any way to provide an incentive that says to people, look, you come in on time or ahead of time, we'll give you a discount. I don't know if we can do that. But come in a day late, and it's going to cost you. We're going to charge you a percentage more than what the extension fee would have been. Now, I don't know whether we're allowed to do that or whether we'd have to ask the city council to do something. So, but that's what was going through my mind when I raised this issue.
Commissioners, if I can just comment on that
Sure.
the idea. Typically, the city only charges fees that go towards the actual cost of processing the applications, and so we're limited to charging what it costs staff. However, I'm sure that these applications probably cost a lot more than what we charge, and so there probably is room to play with that, but it does require usually council approval to adopt a fee schedule, and so they would have to increase the fee schedule.
Anyone else?
I have a
Commissioner Valles?
Yes. Jeff, I do not, because I don't, a lot of, like you say, I'm new. What does AUP stands for? And also CUP stands for?
And I apologize for using acronyms. I do that sometimes out of trying to do things in a hurry. Administrative use permit is what an AUP is. Administrative use permit is what the young ladies just got approved. That was administrative use permit. A CUP is a conditional use permit. There's a little bit different in the way those are processed.
Okay, thank you.
I think you just gave us a package on those items right before the commission changed over here, didn't you? On those, I think those definitions
Yes, the study
and terms.
sessions, yes, and I gave all those study session reports to each of the.
To the new commissioners?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Did I get
it should be
one?
in your package, yeah.
I can get you another one, yeah.
Would you
Yeah.
please?
On
Anyone
the
else?
Conditional use permit, yeah.
Mr. Gatsalas?
As far as a discount, I think the benefit to applying early would just be to, cross your T's and dot your I's, but maybe if, maybe I could direct this question to the city attorney. Would, for late extensions, would maybe some sort of nominal penalty be feasible? Are there any legal issues there?
Typically with permitting fees, cities don't really impose penalties. Either, the way our codes are currently written, it expires, and that's the penalty. So typically you don't see penalties with respect to the timeliness of submitting applications. The tiered cost, possibly, if we can justify it, the fact that it requires additional staff time to process it a little more quickly, the fact that we're probably not recuperating the full amount of our costs when we process these through the fees that we charge, there's probably room there to increase it. But again, it is something that the council would have to consider. There probably would need to be a study just to make sure that we are in compliance with not overcharging what the actual cost to staff is. So there is some, whenever city adopts fee schedules, things like that, it does require a lot of behind-the-scenes work and analysis to support the fees. So if we do something like this and make it a tiered cost or a late cost, then it is something we would have to support with a study.
But technically, Mr. Attorney, technically then, if a person came in a day late, the code has been violated, and I suppose one could say you'd have to reapply?
That is one position you can take. The other argument you can make is, well, we are just choosing not to enforce that provision. So it's not a matter that it automatically terminates as an operation of law. It only terminates when we say it terminates. And we have the right the day after the 1 year to enforce that provision. This happens quite a bit where, cities elect not to enforce certain provisions. When it comes to code enforcement, any code violation of our city code, there's a prosecutorial discretion involved where you have to make a decision on whether to proceed. And so with respect to enforcing the expiration, that's another provision that the city has discretion to exercise when it chooses to.
And we can choose to ignore it?
We can, within reason. Again, I think there's a policy that it seems based on past practices is to understand that there are legitimate business concerns or issues that arise. Typically, I think with a lot of the folks that come in late, it's usually because they haven't acted for a year because either their money wasn't there to do the project and they're still trying to figure out how to fund this project, or other reasons. And there are some that just, for whatever reason, don't decide to pursue it. But again, it is something that from past practices, you can't establish a procedure and a process, but our code does allow us to deem something expired.
So they see the extension fee as being the lesser economically of the choices to pay now, then while they're trying to figure out whether they want to do this or not, having to reapply and pay a larger fee.
Mm-hmm.
I hesitate to ask this question. You're going to probably kill me. Is it possible that we would have some kind of a form letter that we can mail out, let's say a month before it's ready to expire, to let them know that it's going to expire?
We already tried that. We've been doing that. It has varying degrees of success, and it's very burdensome on staff, but we do that now.
You do that now?
Yes.
And then they still go beyond the...
Because what happens is if the applicant on the application is no longer involved, he may not forward it to the people involved. What happens a lot of times, you have an applicant who has been hired by the owner to oversee the project, and then he may be done after he gets planning commission approval. It's turned over to an architect, and he may be a year or two removed from the project. He could have even changed locations, and he doesn't forward the mail. So those are the kind of things that we...
Yeah, but that shouldn't be our problem.
Yes, I agree with you there.
I have a question to ask the attorney. Would this, if you change the cost, would this have to go in front of the city council for approval?
Yes, I believe there's a fee schedule that goes to council annually or semi-annually.
Do we have a motion to, I notice there's 3 alternatives that we have here.
And I guess that's a good question. I think from here, I've not necessarily heard anything coalesced on where you might want to go, but I think we've had a lot of good discussion and questions. Those are 3 alternatives. There may be others, but I guess that would be the point. If you have any questions on those alternatives or haven't come to a conclusion at this point.
Does anybody want to make a motion on?
Sure, I do.
Okay. Commissioner Menifee?
Yeah, I'd move that we that we address this issue of extensions of time for entitlements by rewarding those who meet the deadline stated by giving them a 10% reduction in their extension fee, and by penalizing those who apply for an extension fee after the expiration date by charging them, if they're a day late, 100%, a month late, 120%, a month and a day to 2 months, 140%, and 2 months and a day to 3 months, 160%.
That's got to be approved by city council. It seems to me that it's pretty convoluted. My recommendation, my motion would be, I'm sorry?
I would suggest that you see if there's a second to that motion before you...
Oh, I'm sorry. Is there a second? No. I make a motion that we adopt number 3, but instead of less than 3 months, but extend it 1 month, and that's it. Not the 3 months.
Okay, so basically 30 days.
That's my motion. Do I have a second?
I'd second that.
Discussion? So if they come in 30 days, 31 days later,
It's over. It's 30 days.
you'd have to reapply.
Yes. I have a second?
Second.
Can I interrupt before you make a... I know this is kind of nitty-gritty stuff, and I'm probably kind of dull to listen to, but I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, and because hopefully we don't have to have the discussion again if we can get it all squared away here. I'm wondering if we could do that at 30 days, and at 30 days that we bring it back to you like we always have. If it's within that 30-day time period, or if it's on time, we bring it back to you as we always have. If it's longer than that, within the 3 months, that we bring it back to you as a hearing item, so it's not consent. So it requires your discussion and deliberation to determine if it's a reasonable, if there's a reasonable issue that came up that caused that loss of memory of applying on time.
That's not my motion.
Okay.
I say 1 month, 30 days.
Fair enough. I just want to throw that out there.
That's my motion, 30 days, and I've got a second.
It was second already, wasn't it?
I'm
Second
sorry?
Was second
Commissioner
already.
Blackburn.
Blackburn.
Blackburn second. I made the motion, he seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Did you make nay?
Nay. Okay.
4-1? So it's going to be 1 month, 30 days. Actually, let's say 30 days. That's the easier number.
If it's 31 days in a month, it's one calendar month, I guess, right?
Well, I guess that's the question. I think that gets back to Commissioner Menifee's issue. What does a month mean? And that's why I was saying
No, I'm
30
just saying a
days.
calendar month could be 30 days, 31 days, could be 29 days.
My suggestion is, if you were doing it to be consistent, just say 30 days instead of a month, so that we don't have 28 or 31.
Well, that was my original motion, 30 days.
30 days,
I'll leave it
okay.
stand at that.
Yep, all right. We have direction now. I guess just one follow-up on that. As I think you're all aware, City Hall is not open on Fridays. Generally, it has been our direction that if something were to expire on a Friday, that they get the next day. So that would work the same way with this as it does with appeals and anything else that occurs. All right, thank you very much. All right. The Planning Commission rules of operation, which are attached for you as on the next as attachment 1, establish that Robert's Rules of Order are the guideline on protocol at Planning Commission meetings. Commissioner Menifee has asked for a study session to discuss the method that the Planning Commission follows to achieve a motion and whether Robert's Rules of Order would require a different method. Robert's Rules of Order allow procedural guidelines for decision-making, allow for meaningful discussion, and provide transparency to the public. The purpose of the study session is to discuss the portion of an agenda following the closure of a public hearing by the Planning Commission. The study session is not intended to provide education on Robert's Rules of Order in general. The question was on one particular time period in the agenda. The rules of operation do grant some of the authority to the chairperson to maintain order, to govern at meetings, to decide questions of order, and to direct supervision of debate. It does say in the rules of operation that all questions of parliamentary procedure shall be resolved by Robert's Rules of Order. So typically, following the closure of a public hearing or input, the Planning Commission will ask questions of staff, and then followed by discussion by the Planning Commissioners regarding their thoughts and ideas, and then culminating in a vote, or in a motion and a vote. This process allows for discussion and understanding by each Planning Commissioner on the point of view of the fellow Planning Commissioners. And it also allows for the motion that clearly states the Commission's position on the matter being considered, and continues to allow for discussion after the motion is made. The issue is that Robert's Rules of Order would allow for the closure of a public hearing or public input, the Planning Commission asking questions of staff, followed by a motion, followed by the discussion of the Planning Commission, or discussion by the Planning Commission regarding the thoughts and ideas, and then a vote on the motion. So it really is just a procedural question that was brought up. The decision on how closely to follow Robert's Rules of Order is up to the Planning Commission. Robert's Rules of Order establishes parliamentary procedures that allow for a clear and consistent decision-making process. That's the point. And the goal of the Planning Commission would be to allow for orderly, meaningful, and transparent discussion leading to a thoughtful decision. The agenda is set up in the order that we have the discussion, so any direction to change that, we would be modifying the agenda if you want to change that. Hopefully I've been clear on what the discussion is. If not, please ask me any questions.
Any discussion?
Yes, please.
Commissioner Menifee?
Since I brought this issue up also. The many organizations I've been a part of have always required perhaps a more diligent following of Robert's rules. But after the public input and after staff reports, the commission, in order to address an issue, would have to make a motion and get a second, and then there follows discussion. I had difficulty when I first came to this commission because I thought people were asking things that shouldn't be asked because there wasn't a motion on the table, until I finally realized that's just the way we do it here. And I just brought this to Jeff's attention to say, wait a minute, why don't we follow Robert's rules? And Robert's rules, if you'll look at under discussion, the latter part of the second paragraph, it says, the issue that Robert rules would allow for closure of a public hearing and public input, the Planning Commission asking questions of staff, followed by a motion and second, and then followed by discussion of the Planning Commission. So it would reverse that portion of the way that we have heretofore been doing it. But it would have a motion on the table that we could then discuss, determine if we needed to amend, going through the process that's there. Thank you.
Commissioners, may I chime in on this as well? In response to this inquiry, I took a look at Robert's Rules and just some background on Robert's Rules. Its origins were in England, parliamentary procedures over in England, and basically, originally it was meant for larger groups. And so what you're seeing now, there's a trend of people moving away from Robert's Rules for smaller groups. And so, but the majority of cities in Los Angeles County and state of California do still adhere to Robert's Rules. However, as Commissioner Menefee indicated, that is the correct literal interpretation of the procedures. However, Robert's Rules does allow for questions for clarification prior to a motion. So if you think of it this way, debate should be limited to after the motion, to a formal motion first and second, and then the debate should occur. Prior to that, Robert's Rules would say that only questions for clarification, and I'm sure you've seen many public hearings where the applicant comes in and throws everything against the wall and has a certain idea of what the facts should be, and it requires staff to correct some of the facts. And so because of those kind of issues that come up in public hearings, there is an element of the city and staff need to either answer questions when staff has the questions to get clarification, or we want to add additional facts to correct the record. And so that way we can provide you with all the facts to frame a proper motion with all the facts that, with all the accurate facts. So again, just going back to what Jeff indicated, is the past practices was to have questions and clarification of staff, and it makes a lot of sense to do that in order to clarify so that the commission has all the accurate facts to make a motion. We don't want your motions to be based on incorrect facts on the record. And so I think that's where this process kind of morphed and evolved, because of the need to a lot of times correct facts in the record prior to a motion's made. So again, Robert's Rules really just says that debate should be held until after the motion. However, it doesn't prohibit complete discussion and clarification and communications between staff and the commission itself. So if the commission's trying to resolve or clarify something to another commissioner, that is allowed as well.
I guess where I'm coming from, I'd like to have all the information before me, and I get good information from fellow commissioners before a motion is made, because one of the commissioners or two or three may bring up something I haven't thought of. And therefore, if I have that in the equation before I make the motion, I just feel more comfortable with it. But to make a motion and then later on get some information, then you got to change the motion again. It seems to me that it's just duplicating efforts. I mean, that's my feeling. So what you've got laid out here in the typically following the closure of the public hearing or public input, Planning Commission will ask questions of staff or applicant, followed by discussion by the planning commissioners regarding their thoughts and ideas, and then culmination in a motion to vote. It seems to me that that's the most logical way to go, rather than to make a motion and all of a sudden more information comes in, then you got to change the motion again because you got more information. That's just my feeling. The way we've been doing it, I guess, that's the way I prefer. Commissioner Blackburn?
I would agree with that. I think that a lot of times when we do have discussions, it's after the fact, prior to the motion. But I think that it's very important to listen to the other commissioners and, excuse me, as you stated, but I think that I agree with what you said.
Commissioner Valley? Nothing? Mr. Gaslanis?
Okay, so just to clarify, going forward, we'll just get all the discussion and ideas prior to the motion, and no discussion after the motion? Is that what we're going with?
No, the discussion is allowed before or after the motion. I don't think we're saying that there is no discussion after the motion. It's just to whether to allow discussion prior to the motion. That's really the issue.
We're saying basically what I'm saying is what you've got outlined in the middle paragraph. Again, I'm going to read it. Typically following the closure of the public hearing or public input, the Planning Commission will ask questions of staff or the applicant or other members of the public if necessary, followed by discussion by the Planning Commissioner regarding their thoughts and ideas, and then culminating in a motion and a vote. So it would be staff report, public input, where did I go? Public input, discussion by commissioners, and then a motion to vote.
And I think as John has pointed out, part of the reason, the idea behind that discussion before the motion is more clarification of issues from each commissioner's point of view. That's
Right.
really what the purpose of it is. It isn't to debate a motion, but there should be allowed room for discussion after a motion is made and seconded. For clarification's sake, to state opinions, or to be perfectly blunt, to talk about conditions if that's appropriate, either adding other conditions or removing conditions, or doing different things, so it makes sure that everyone's understands what the vote is about, and perhaps can lead to a consensus vote that maybe is unanimous, or at least has
So if you're done with discussion and you make a motion, but then one of the commissioners has other questions, until that motion is passed, you can still ask questions and get information.
Yes.
Okay.
And typically that period after the second is made is where vigorous debate on the merits a lot of times occurs. So that's usually allowed for healthy debate at that
So
period.
till the motion is passed, then discussion is over. I mean, once it's passed.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Well, it seems to me then the chairman needs to recognize that after he has a second to make sure there's motions before he calls for the roll call.
I just have one question. Basically, that's what we're doing now.
Correct.
We have discussion prior to a motion is being made, and there is discussion, if necessary, afterwards.
Correct.
Yeah, usually there's not.
It hasn't happened.
Usually once you ask for a motion and you get a motion and a second.
And you vote.
Usually it doesn't happen that there's discussion after. Usually just you do it. But there could be discussion.
There could be.
Until that motion is passed.
It may be that it might be a good idea for the chairman to state any discussion before we vote. Then that's a simple change, wouldn't affect the agenda, it's just.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Very good.
Thank you.
So, do we need to vote on this?
You don't need a motion because basically you've agreed
That's
to
what we're
just
doing.
continue how we've been doing it with the way the agenda's set up.
Does that suffice? Okay, thank you. All right, where are we at here? Okay, continuation of oral communications. Wake up, you have anything to say out there? Commission reports, comments, miscellaneous items. Do I have to read this? Are there any commissioner reports or comments?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay, Jeff Anderson just reminded me, the subcommittee meeting that we have going forward, because I was gone last month and all that, right now it is Commissioner Menifee and Commissioner Blackburn are on the subcommittee. That's who I want to appoint, and hopefully they accept it, because they did it already today. You accept?
Yes.
I do. Thank you. Okay. Anything else, Commissioner discussion?
If I may,
Sure.
thank you for your forbearance and your endurance of my questions tonight. I do think a lot about things, and I think it's important that we think together, and we don't have opportunities to do that for a variety of reasons, like the Brown Act and other things, so we can't just talk together about them. So I appreciate your letting me bring these on the agenda through Jeff, so we could have a discussion.
Yeah, it was helpful, so thank you for bringing them up and sort of for clarification.
We have the project status report on here, which processes each of the applications that have been approved by the Planning Commission over the years is going through, and we have minutes from the past subcommittee. And I think that's it.
We don't have to vote on this review,
You do
the
not.
subcommittee, because that's, okay, fine. City council action?
City council action, I guess the one thing to report is that I did mention that there was a code amendment being initiated by city council to consider some changes to the R1's standards in single-family residential areas. And there were moratorium that went along with that. They did extend that moratorium for 10.5 months. We gave them a tentative schedule on how that was going to track. Right now, we are planning a study session on that item on the 9th of July. So to sort of educate you on that.
Thank you. Anything else? Any questions of staff? No? I have a motion.
I have one comment. I expressed my great interest in, wherever I put it, the rules of order for the Planning Commission, because I had never seen it before.
Rules of operation.
Rules of operation, thank you. And suggested to staff that would be a neat thing to give to every new commissioner so that they know what's been going on and what the proper thing is to do. I understand that maybe I just got passed over on that one, but that it is common to do that. But I was glad to hear that because I thought, wow, this is kind of interesting, rules of operation, right? So thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? We're adjourned.